Well, welcome to another episode of Niger Innis Presents The Trump Revolution, a part of the TV Abraham Network. Well, folks, this is an extraordinary time. I think for the first time in hundreds of years, if not a millennium, the start of Ramadan, the beginning of Lent, which of course is precious on the Christian and in particular Catholic calendar. And the Lunar New Year, I believe the year of the horse, were all taking place within a 24-hour period. So it's an extraordinary spiritual time. And I think the political and cultural activity that is occurring in the United States and around the world is a reflection of this extraordinary spiritual time. Uh, just recently, the Supreme Court struck down a major part of the Trump agenda in regards to tariffs. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3, which is really bizarre considering that the court has six Supreme Court justices that were elevated by Republican presidents. And even though they have, I guess, hypothetically speaking, an ideological advantage of 6-3, very often it is not just a straight down reflection of the presidents who nominated and then eventually would elevate them, except for of course, the liberals. The liberals are consistently pulling the liberal agenda on the Supreme Court. But essentially, it's a one, not, instead of a 50-50 or 5-4 split, you essentially have a 3-3-3 plurality. You have, of course, the three liberal justices. You, of course, have Alito, Thomas, and sometimes Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch consistently. Um, either it is Gorsuch or it is Kavanaugh, but nevertheless, you pretty much have three conservative justices, and then you've got I call the Roberts Amigos, which are the centrists on the court. So you have a 3-3-3, and so at any time you can have a Supreme Court decision that reflects that reality and reflects the fact that the court will sometimes, I would say oftentimes, weigh in against the president's agenda. Well, the Supreme Court ruled on February 20th that the law that the president was using as a vehicle to use his tariffs to negotiate better deals for the American people, that law is the letters reflecting that law are IEEPA. That is the law. A Supreme Court ruled that the law does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. The ruling means essentially that President Trump's IEEPA tariffs, including the Liberation Day tariffs, are illegal. And we estimate those tariffs have raised close to between 160 billion to 200 billion for the federal government through February 2026, and would have raised 1.4 trillion from 2026 through 2035. So this is no Mickey Mouse decision that has just been made. And quite frankly, I think that the decision raises more questions than it gives answers. For example, those companies that have borne the burden, if you will, of these tariffs that have deposited money into the U.S. Treasury, Are they going to be entitled to getting their money back? And if so, how so? I think the president has said that, all right, fine, you rule on this law, but there are other justifications and laws, which, by them being passed by either Congress or imposed by a former president, the president can use to justify his tariffs. And in fact, he has raised tariffs yet again by 10% on some countries, by 15% on other countries. And I think this is going to be, as I think Justice Kavanaugh said, this is going to be a mess that we're going to have to unravel and deal with over the next several months. Well, if that was not enough, you also have the what the president calls the armada, if you will, going to the coast of Iran. And the president, as he has brilliantly done in the past, is playing high stakes poker and is using the real intent or bluff, high level bluff of these this armada potentially getting engaged in kinetic military action against the mullahs in Iran. Right now, I mean, you have the largest buildup in the region since Iraq War One and Iraq War Two. You've got the USS Gerald Ford. You've got four destroyers and three combat ships in the region, and it seems like America is gearing up for something in the region, and that, as I think Admiral Stavridis said, if he were the Iranians, the Iranian mullahs, he would pay very close attention and get to the negotiating stage to prevent military action from taking place. And of course, there are a variety of things that the president can do. The president can, in addition to kinetic military action and war, full-fledged war, a la Iraq One or Iraq Two, the president could engage in a cyber attack, which has been done in the past by the Israelis. The president can have a operation very similar to what happened in Venezuela, where you essentially cut off the head of the snake and you take out the Iranian leadership. I think most of the American people would prefer that method of kinetic military activity as opposed to having boots on the ground. Very sadly, the British Prime Minister Starmer has said that he is not going to be involved in this action because it doesn't have global approval. Our friends in Jerusalem and Israel are, of course, steadfast allies, and I would expect that they will either publicly or behind the scenes be supportive of our efforts. I think the wild card in this situation is going to be many of the Gulf states, of course, the UAE and the Saudis. The UAE has been a steadfast ally as have the Saudis to a lesser extent, but they have been allies as well. And while a year ago, if you had asked this question, those folk would be very much in favor of U.S. engagement in the region and taking on Iran directly. But over the past year, it seems that they have moved a little bit away from that. I'm not completely sure where they are going to stand on a future U.S. endeavor. Thank goodness President Trump is president because he has extremely strong relationships with the heads of state of the aforementioned UAE and Saudi Arabia. So this is going to be a very interesting uh, period of time. Of course, while this is all happening, on one hand, again, President Trump playing strategic and diplomatic, having strategic and diplomatic initiatives. President Trump is also has Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, involved in negotiations with Iran, either through the intermediaries of the Gulf states or directly. And one of the things interesting that was reported that came out of one of these meetings is that Iran, what was raised was that Iran has the freedom, and the U.S. does not consider their civilian, peaceful nuclear development as a threat to the global order. But so it's very interesting. The president is, on the one hand, has the unprecedented U.S. armada and military buildup in that area in Iran. On the other hand, he's got Witkoff and Kushner that are negotiating something. And it's going to be interesting to see what Iran does in the future. And of course, the president has the opportunity. I don't know exactly when this commentary is going to air, so the State of the Union could have taken place before it airs. But as of now, the time space that we're in right now, the State of the Union is forthcoming. It's coming up, and the president will have the opportunity to, of course, combat the Supreme Court's decision, which he calls ridiculous and an embarrassment, and also talk about his plans for Iran. Obviously, he's not going to reveal his whole cards to keep with the poker metaphor. He's not going to reveal everything, but he can give some type of rationale from 10,000 feet, rationale for our engagement with Iran, not only helping the Iranian people, the great Persian people, which have a grand civilization that goes back more than 3 millennia. Uh, and I separate, and I think most of us should separate the needs and desires and the hopes and aspirations of the Persian people versus the mullah, or what I call the mullahcracy, the mullah regime, and their agenda for themselves and their restrictions on the very Persian or Iranian people. So it's going to be a fascinating week, couple of weeks, probably even longer for President Trump. And of course, in the backdrop of all of this, you have the midterms, which are fastly coming. And it does seem that that is going to be a real challenge for the Republican Party to hold on to one or both houses of Congress. I think that the Senate is probably more likely to stay in Republican hands, although that's not automatic. The House is going to be much more difficult for the president to keep. So stay tuned, folks. We will have a variety of guests talking about those two issues, the Supreme Court decision and the tariff agenda of the president, and of course, our potential engagement with the regime in Iran. And we're going to have on a fascinating number of guests, experts, to talk about these various issues in the weeks and months to come. So I thank you for joining. This is actually, you're here for history. This is the first time I've done a one-on-one, if you will, commentary. The one-on-one being me and the global audience, including the United States. That is the TV Abraham Network. I hope you enjoyed it. There'll be more of these in the future. And I want to sign off now, as we always do, with the words of my great father, civil rights icon Roy Ennis, who said Niger always used the principles of TLC. And he didn't mean truth, I'm sorry, he didn't mean tender love and care, although he gave me plenty of that. He meant truth, logic, and courage. With that, I want to thank you again for another episode. Stay tuned for future episodes of Niger Innis Presents the Trump Revolution, a part of the TV Abraham Network. God bless.